Alright, this video is primarily for my group who played the Cosmere RPG on Foundry, and we are playing some Starfinder while we wait for the next Cosmere game to come out, the Mistborn game. This may provide useful to others, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm kind of focused on what my players need to know to play a different game on here. So the first thing I wanted to cover is that in the Paizo 2nd edition systems, your initiative roll is not always the same as in the way that it is in D&D. And of course, Cosmere did not have initiative in the same way that D&D and the Paizo games do. So here's the character sheet for Jadena. We're going to have one of our players playing as them. So if I ask you to roll for initiative, and there could be reasons to roll with all these different other types of things. One of the examples they give in the player core is that if you are stealthing at the time of initiative, then you would pick stealth as your initiative roll. Okay, you would pick what type of initiative you're going to do, and then basically you could click on the Encounters tab to roll your initiative. You can see here that it's doing it based off of stealth because that's what was picked over here. And so this will be a stealth-based initiative roll. We'll let our baddie here roll. Okay. So that's the important thing. Often we'll be doing it with perception, but there could be reasons to change it, and now you know how to change it. Another thing that is different in the Paizo systems is the concept of a secret perception check. The idea behind the secret perception check is to prevent metagaming. So in D&D, you ask me what's in the room, I tell you to do a perception check. You know, if you rolled a 15, 16, 17, whatever, that you can believe whatever I tell you. You rolled highly. And you know if you roll low, I might tell you didn't find anything, or I might make something up. Who knows? So Starfinder and Pathfinder 2nd edition, they want to get around the ability to metagame and know how well you actually did. So sometimes I may ask you for a secret perception roll. You would click on this little eyeball here, and you can see it's a private GM roll. Only I will be able to see what the result is. And you click roll, and if I come over here, you can see it was a perception check. It was only for me, and it tells you what came into the numbers there. You see the breakdown there, and that's the final number. Continuing along with things that are unique to the Paizo games. The Paizo games do not have the concept of a short rest like you have in Dungeons and Dragons, or kind of a certain sense you have in Cosmere. Instead, there are some exploration mode mechanics such as treat wounds or refocus, and they take 10 minutes, so you have to be in a situation where you can safely spend 10 minutes doing something, and then you can use the treat wounds to heal some HP and maybe apply some medi patches, or to get back some of your focus points. I believe the only person using focus points in Murder in Metal City will be the person who's playing Arisoki Nitpick. If it's time to do a long rest, you click on the bed over here, rest for the night. You wake well rested because you got your 8 hours of sleep. Now, one quick thing in Pathfinder and Starfinder, it's a little less generous than D&D. It's a little more rigorous. You don't wake up with all your hit points. It's actually a formula that determines how much you get back. And so this game, you can't just cheese things and decide that you're going to just sleep it off and be perfectly fine. And the amount of hit points you gain back is your Constitution modifier times your level. One of the things that we talked about after finishing our Cosmere game was the fact that people were forgetting some of the details in between sessions. Since we're going to be doing a murder mystery here, you probably want to remember things a little better. So one of the things that you could do is use the built-in journals that are built into Foundry. Under player journals, I'll create a journal for each of you and give you ownership. If you click on it, you get something like this. And you can add a page. Let's call it session 0 notes. And then you can do whatever here. There are all these types of ways to format things. You save your entry. And then there you go. The most important thing is to hit save entry before you hit X. Otherwise, you're going to lose your progress. I would probably hit save entry quite a bit throughout any session if you're taking notes live. Obviously, feel free to use whatever you like if you prefer Evernote or Notepad or something else. I'm just letting you know that that's something within Foundry that you can use if you wish. All right, let's take a look at some combat here. So we have Jardina and Prug ready to fight here in combat. And actually, let's go ahead and add Vorza Moonshot as well. Oh, a nat 20. Great for him. All right. So what I wanted to cover here is another difference between Starfinder and D&D. And it's kind of similar to what we dealt with in Cosmere, but a little bit different. So just like Cosmere, we have a 3-action economy. You have 3 actions you can take on your turn, plus 1 reaction for every turn. This tab here has your actions, and you can see based on the icon whether it takes 1 action. This one takes 2 actions. Now, one of the things that we dealt with in Cosmere is, let's say you want to attack twice in 1 turn, and you would basically use a focus point to use your offhand in Cosmere. What Starfinder and Pathfinder have is the multiple attack penalty. And in fact, it says within the player core, and I believe the GM core, that if you are attacking 3 times, you're probably not playing correctly. There's almost always something better that you can do rather than attack a 3rd time. But let's talk about how it works. So I'm gonna begin this encounter, and we're gonna skip Vorza's turn for now. We're gonna move to Jardina. So one of the other things is you have to spend an action to draw whatever weapons you want to use. Now, if we know we're going into an encounter, you could have pre-drawn them, but in this case, we didn't. So let's go ahead and draw her commercial laser 2-handed. So she's done that. You can see that was a manipulate, which is 1 action. So she still has 2 actions to go. If you see here, she's got strike, and then so this is a +7, then the map, and then the second map. So if you were playing, so you would click on the baddie, you would target them, and then first time you click strike. And so you struck the baddie, and if you wanted to strike again, before we resolve the damage, if you wanted to strike again, you would click on this one, which now instead of a +7 to attack, you have a +2. And if you do a 3rd time, you click here, which is a -3 to attack, so even less chance that you're actually going to hit. Now, if you look here, it says the result was a hit by a +5. We'll return to that in a moment, but that's very important. So then you would just click damage, and you've got your base damage. We're not adding anything to it. Go, and the baddie takes some damage. So that has happened, and then If this is like Cosmere, I'll have to do the application of damage. You guys won't be able to apply the damage. So I'll go ahead and apply the damage, and Batty takes 2 damage. All right. One thing I want you to note as well is that the ammo for this gun is a battery, and it automatically subtracted 2, which is what this is supposed to do. It uses 2 battery charges per attack. This here is to eject the battery. All right, so we covered the map. We covered how to see how much you hit. We saw the damage. All right. So I just want to quickly state that the multiple attack penalty does apply to everything within your turn, so you don't get to get around it by switching weapons. You have to decide which weapons you're going to attack with first and second if you're going to take that penalty. The other thing that's important, the reason why it says here hit by 5 plus 5, is that in the Paizo 2nd edition games, you crit if you're 10 over or 10 under, not just by being at a nat 20 or a nat 1. So it's pretty important to know whether you hit by 10 or more, and then you would have hit the critical here to do the critical damage. So it's a little more exciting than D&D in that there's not just a 1 in 20 chance of getting a crit. The chance of getting a crit changes depending on the character's AC and how hard you can hit. So things get pretty exciting here, and one thing that I've read a lot online with the different Paizo games is that an important part of the game is doing things to mess with the enemy's AC or to increase your attack so that you can try to get those crits. All right, let's intentionally play incorrectly to wear down the battery, because Jadena has 2 batteries. So let's see what happens when she runs out of ammo. So we're gonna do more strikes than we should, basically. Now she's down to 6 charges. Ooh, that was a critical hit, and it says right here, result critical hit by 16. That's awesome. We'll do, and it tells you here to click on that one, which is awesome. So now it's adding, instead of 1d8 fire, now we are at 2 times 1d8 fire, which is pretty cool. Damage that baddie. All right, let's go again. Now again, I should be clicking on these map things, but I'm just trying to waste the ammo. We'll go ahead and do damage again. I'm pretty sure this bad guy's 100% dead at this point. All right, almost done here. So boom. All right. So now you see that the battery is empty. We can hit reload, which does take an action. So you do have to be strategic in how you do this. And we see we've got another battery we could use. And boom, there we go. We did it. Dropping weapons, by the way, is a free action, which makes sense. I just want to pop a quick look at the inventory here. So we've got 1 spent battery, 1 full battery. So for those of you that have, I think everybody has at least some kind of battery-based or ammo-based gun. You can take a look here and see what your ammo situation is before you keep going. Before I forget, I want to cover one thing here that's not very important, but that you might find useful. If you click over here, you can get rid of any tabs that you don't care for. So we're not playing Starfinder Society, you can get rid of that tab. The biography is probably not important. Some of the other ones will depend on you, but there you go. So now it's less cluttered. So let's say we know that Jadena is not a spellcaster, then you can get rid of that one. And it's just decluttering things, making it a little bit less annoying for you, a little bit less for your brain to focus on while you're trying to role play and fight and play your character and do all that stuff at once. I will show you really quickly here your proficiencies. So in D&D, you have proficiency in something or you don't. With Starfinder and Pathfinder, it actually has degrees of things. That's one thing you'll kind of notice across the entire system. Everything is just a little bit more, right? And so instead of just like, you're good at this or you're not, what you've got is you can be untrained, trained, or expert, and that changes your modifier, like how strong your modifier is on different things. Additionally, another thing I want to show you here while we're looking at the UI, anything here that you want to know more about, just click on the name. It'll give you the entry that's equivalent to the entry in the player core. You'll see what a critical does here, what a success does. And if, let's say we go to that one, same thing. And then the other thing that's really neat here is that there's a lot of hints here, because a lot of stuff in the Paizo games is governed by traits. You'll see all these traits in the book, and instead of having to go look this up or ask ChatGPT or whatever, you can just put your mouse over this and it'll tell you what it means. This is tech, which means it can glitch. Reload 1, that one doesn't have a thing, but I think that just means that reloading takes one action. Attack, these are things that are subject to the multiple attack penalty. It tells you what the regular damage is, what the critical damage is. This one is analog, so it can't be glitched. It's versatile. This tells you what it means. Basically, you can decide. So it's versatile S, so you can be slashing or piercing. So those are all the kind of like the neat little things built into the system that are different from Cosmere. Although Cosmere, you could click on things and see a description. It just wasn't as based on tags. All right, now we move on to our Vesk Solarian, bores a moonshot. There's a couple things here that are involved in the Solarian build. First of all, there is attunement. So essentially, a Solarian is either graviton attuned or photon attuned. You get to attune once per round, as you can see here. And essentially, just to show you here, so graviton gives you this solar flare here, which is a strike, let's see here, 15 feet. The photon attuned goes 30 feet, but this one has a damage of 1d6 4 fire, whereas this one has a damage of 1d8 plus 4 bludgeoning. So there are some strategies involved in whether you want to be solar or, graviton or photon attuned. It's up to you which one you want to be. The other thing is, if we want to match the character sheet in there, in the pre-gen, then we want to get your solar hammer. And so the way we do that, a use of attunement, that'll give us a solar weapon that we can go here. All right, so the one that we want is the hammer, which is bludgeoning, and it has the traits of sweep and trip. Oh, let's see here. Yes, sweep and trip, and then it is a hammer. So there's our solar weapon, which we now have with a +7, as it's supposed to have. And then if we are graviton attuned, we are 1d8 bludgeoning. Oh, it's the same bludgeoning either way. The difference is if we are photon attuned, then we've got +1 fire. That's the big difference here in your hammer. The other thing is you are supposed to have a shield. Now this shield that you get is a solar shield. It doesn't take up any of your hands. It's free, which is awesome. And so I don't know for sure if the game is going to take care of all the math, so just be aware that in Pathfinder and Starfinder, shields can be destroyed. They have their own HP. If you're graviton attuned and it's destroyed, you're going to have a shock wave go off. If you're photon attuned, when it's destroyed, it's going to release a flash of light. And then basically when you do your daily preparations, which is after 8 hours of sleep, you can get all your hit points back to your shield, or if you rest for 10 minutes, which we talked about earlier. So let me see. I wonder if I drag this onto him like that, does that give it to him? It does. Cool. So there we go. He's got a shield with 7 HP. You can raise your shield. That does take an action, but once you've got it raised, it's not taking up any of your hands, which is awesome. And let's say we do that. We apply the effect. Now your AC is 19, which is pretty awesome. All right. So we talked about attunement. We talked about getting your shield and getting your weapon. And I think that's all the important stuff. Sweep here. So basically, if you attack with this weapon, you get a bonus attack. If you've tried to attack a different target, so it kind of undoes a little bit of the map here, the penalty for going the second time. Okay, and that might be some math that you need to watch yourself. I'm not 100% sure that the system is going to do that correctly. All right, finally, let's bring Nitpick into things here. Let's grab him and add him to the battle. Roll initiative. All right. Very cool. So, oh yeah, no, going back to Vorza here, this shows that he has the shield. That kind of keeps us, reminds us that he's got the shield going. So for Nitpick, when you roll initiative, you get to do a quantum pulse, which gives you a free warp reality that doesn't use your actions. So you put your field wherever you want your field to be, and there are rules that govern essentially what you can do within this field. As of right now, as a this gives you the reaction spell of warp probability, and if you fail an attack roll or saving throw, you get to re-roll the fail check and take the better result, which is pretty awesome. This is a focus spell. It uses your focus points, and I believe at this point you only have one, and then it will, with a 10-minute rest, you can regain your focus spells. So that's, and here are all of your spells. You're the only character in our current game that has spells, and as before, this will explain how this works. And here you can see how many actions the different spells take. Just like D&D, your cantrips, you have an infinite number of them. Your spells, you have only 3 spell slots, and you regain those after a night's sleep. You regain your focus points after a night's sleep as well, or if you use the refocus activity. So yes, and then this warp probability is anchoring, meaning you have to have your field activated, which you get for free when you roll initiative. All right, so to cap things off, I just want to go over a few things that are not unique to Foundry, but are different in Starfinder that would be useful to know. First of all, we'll talk about hero points. Your hero points are tracked up here. Left clicking gives you more. Right clicking subtracts them. So your hero points, you get 1 at the start of every session, and you can get more by performing heroic deeds. Essentially, it's whatever I determine is amazing or worthy of hero points. You can do 2 things with this meta currency. Number 1, you could spend 1 hero point to reroll a check. You have to take the second result, and you can't use more than 1 hero point on a check. So you could save it for what you think is a key moment and use your hero point to reroll a check, because you've always got at least 1 hero point at the start of your session. You can spend all of your hero points to avoid death. So in Starfinder and Pathfinder, their equivalent of death saves is having the dying condition, and your dying condition goes up to a certain level, somewhat similar but not exactly as what we were dealing with in Cosmere. And if you spend all your hero points, you stop having the dying condition, you stabilize with 0 hit points, you don't gain the wounded condition, and so basically it's a way that you can stabilize yourself and not keep moving towards death, and also not have the wounded condition. That is a lot like Starfinder, where if you were dropped to 0 HP and you got back up, there were consequences to that, right? Because in Cosmere, they didn't want you to die. They wanted death to be rare. That's not necessarily something that has to be the case in Pathfinder and Starfinder. There is technology, there is magic, but they have this mechanic. So that's hero points. The next thing, Jadena at the very least has electromag grenades, and one of the possible effects that they can have is to cause the glitching condition. Anything that is tech is, so like this commercial laser rifle is tech, means that it can end up being hacked. It is subject to the glitching condition. So pros and cons there. You can cause your enemy stuff to glitch, but maybe they can cause your stuff to glitch. On the other hand, Nitpick here he does have this laser pistol, which I believe is tech. But he also has a semi-automatic pistol, which is analog, so it can't be made glitching. So, there are pros and cons to each type of weapon, and just keep that in mind when you're attacking, defending, and so on. And it doesn't just affect weapons. Like if you're fighting a bad guy who happens to be a robot or something, potentially they're subject to being made to glitch or being hacked. We already covered that you get crits at 10 over and 10 under the AC or DC. One important change in the Paizo games compared to D&D 5e is that if you let's take advantage of the fact that Nitpick's thing here has revealed a grid. Let's bring these guys in here. So normally in D&D 5e, if you were to move anywhere here, Nitpick would not be able to have an opportunity attack or reaction, but that's not how Paizo games work. With Paizo games, moving to any square can trigger a reaction. Now, there is a special thing you can do called step. But it only lets you move 1 square and it uses up a whole entire action. But you could step here, and then you would not trigger a reaction. But if let's say you wanted to run away and you were here, then you would trigger an action, trigger a reaction, or at least potentially trigger a reaction. Remember, this is not as devastating as it seems when compared to D&D, because each character only has 1 reaction per turn. So if you trigger it going to there, you're not going to trigger it again when you go here. They've used their reaction. Or they may choose not to use their reaction, and that's also your choice. Some of you guys have more than 1 reaction available to you. So you have to decide, are you going to use it to take some kind of opportunity attack? Are you going to use it to block, or in Nitpick's case, to be able to re-roll with his Witch Warper talents? It's up to you. But the important thing is, unlike D&D, you can trigger a reaction on every single square that you are next to somebody. All right, and then the last three things I want to cover are either based on our story or based on the Starfinder universe in general. So I think I'll go general and then get more and more specific. So first of all, it is going to play a little bit in this adventure, but it is definitely something that plays much more heavily in other adventures. And that is, there's an event called the Gap that happened quite some time ago. I want to say 325-ish years ago. I don't remember the exact timeline, but essentially, when the Gap happened, the planet Galarian, which is where Pathfinder takes place, disappears. Absalom Station, which is a ginormous space station, appears in its place, and everyone's memories are wiped. And so most of the people, or many of the people that were alive then, are no longer alive, but there are some long-lived species, elves for example, that would remember that time and the trauma of that time. Where it could come into play with this particular adventure is if it involves anything with the deep past, or people's fascination with the deep past. That's part of the reason why, because, well, not only did everyone lose their memories, but all computer records were also corrupted. So there's a big gap, capital T, capital G, the gap in history. All right, next thing. This is more important for this adventure. Within the Starfinder universe, what we call AI in our world is called VI, or Virtual Intelligence, in Starfinder. It is reserved for creatures that are, able to intelligently respond to tasks. Think of, ChatGPT or whatever. But they don't have free will, and they don't have a soul. AI is reserved for beings that either have free will or have a soul, or both. And sometimes this might be the way they're made, such as androids. Other times, AI might gain sentience or a soul. I think those are called SROs in Starfinder. So, like, you could have had an AI on your computer and something happens, magic or whatever, and it gains a soul or it gains sentience, and then it becomes an AI. So when people use AI in Starfinder, think something with free will. When they use VI, think of what we call AI now. One more thing. Actually, there's four things. So the third thing is that you all have comm units. You can picture this however you wish. I believe in the player core it says some people have this incorporated into their armor or their suit or whatever, their futuristic clothing. And other people, it may be something equivalent to a tablet or a phone that we have now. Perhaps a consequence of the fact that when Starfinder 1E was created, there weren't yet smartphones, or maybe they were pretty new. So everyone has a comm unit, and it has apps. It allows you guys to communicate to each other. It allows you to access the infosphere, which is what they call the internet in Starfinder. And finally, we will go over this a little bit in our first session, but for the purpose of this adventure, all of you are already living on Avalon, which is the planet where this takes place when the adventure begins, but you guys don't yet know each other. All right, I think that covers all the important things, especially with respect to Foundry. Just as we did with Cosmere, and just as I do with all my games, we're not playing a video game, so there's a lot of automation going on, which, when it comes to Foundry, makes the Paizo games a lot easier to play because there's a lot less math that we need to do. But you still need to be a little bit on top of things because according to some people on the subreddit for Starfinder, not every single thing is perfectly automated the way you would hope that it is. There are some things that perhaps it doesn't take into account. So just make sure that you have a good understanding of your character and how their weapons work and how their powers work. I'll do my best to help as the GM, but it'll help things go more smoothly if you know what's going on with your character. And we'll, if we forget to target a bad guy or whatever, we'll adjudicate things as we did with Cosmere. We'll figure out how to make things work if it's not doing the math for us. But since Pathfinder's a lot more mathy than the other games, try to do your best to target the bad guys as you should. All right. And if you're not part of my gaming group and you found this useful, I'm glad. I like to make my videos to help others and provide support to people in the TTRPG community. So excellent. I'm glad it was able to help you out with something. All right, bye.